All right, we got Hubaris here. We're going to talk about 2v2's. You are like the 2v2 guy. The first time I mentioned 2v2, you were the first one to hit me up. Whenever I talk to somebody about 2v2, they mention you. You are the first name that gets brought up. How do you feel about that?
Hopefully that doesn't remain the case because we're trying to make 2v2 a little more popular. So
Yeah.
hopefully there'll be more people than just me trying to fish for 2v2 games. That's
And
kind of cool, I guess.
it's very cool. No, it's
Yeah.
cool. 2v2 is my favorite way to play the game. It has been pretty much since I started regularly playing. I got the game September of last year. Never played it. I'm terrible at playing my new games. A buddy of mine who got me the game as a gift forced me to play. Thank God. And I was hooked. And then I moved in with my roommates. I have 4 roommates, because I ain't rich. Times are tough. And also, my buddy, Robert, got so into the game, so we collectively just all own all the Unmatched, other than Deadpool. We have every single one. And all 4 of us play 2v2. We did that for like 2 months straight. So I actually knew how to play 2v2 better than I did 1v1. How'd you get into 2v2?
Honestly, it was just a fun format. I thought it was just kind of interesting that I know people were playing free for alls and stuff like that, and wasn't quite my speed. I wasn't too into the free for all aspect, but what I did like about it was the stupid things like you leap away someone into another person so then they can get double attacked and this and that. And I started thinking like, wow, this would be great as a 2v2 thing because you can like team up with a partner, come up with some cool combinations, and lo and behold, when I started doing that, it's like, wow, this is actually really fun. So it became kind of my go-to format. I still like 1v1. Don't really like 3 for all, and I don't like 4-player free for all, but 2v2 is my favorite. And I just love the almost like the emergent creativity you get, right? Because you're not just handling one hand, but uh, another person's hand as well, and different. There's so many variables. It's much harder to kind of pin down what's going on. It's more exciting, I think.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and for me, I like to work cooperatively. So that's exciting, when it comes to UMA. But I feel like there's like a sportiness to it with 2v2, which is my favorite part of it. It feels like I'm like on a sports team, you know.
Like tennis almost,
Yeah,
like it doubles, yeah.
and doubles like feels really intimate. Where if it was like a whole team, like that's really cool and fun. But when it's just 2 bros fighting against the world, that feels really fun.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, look, you have Achilles, you have Patroclus, you have
Icons.
Double Dragon, right? Like all these things are 2 people fighting. It's great, right? Look at any 80s action movie, right?
Yeah, it just feels like closer, and it feels like there's a strong bond, especially when you win, and when you win the 2v2, you just go like, bro, remember when you did that? You read my mind, like that type. It just feels so good. But I was wondering if you could tell me the differences between 2v2 and 1v1 in your opinion, and why you would play 2v2 over 1v1. Not that one is better than the other, but considering it as like a serious way to play the game.
Yeah, so they're 2 very different games. Yeah, the main game mechanics are obviously the same. I mean, there's nothing different about that. But just the game feel is very different. The way you choose heroes and the way you kind of approach cards is also very different.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's played a lot in the kind of the competitive scene for 1v1, they'll know that there's always this looming, boogeyman of exhaustion in the background. But there's very few 2v2 games that actually make it to that point. So the way you approach a card, something that says draw three is really good. Whereas in 1v1, draw three, not as good, right? And like you kind of have to look at cards also from kind of a value perspective, right? You may only have a bunch of 2 versatiles, but because you're getting attacked more often sometimes, um, I'd rather sometimes just take 2 versatiles over a couple, red 4s, right? Because there's
Yeah.
still value to that, right? And that versatility is like really important in the format. So
Yeah, and like sometimes you get what you get and you get attacked perhaps twice as much. So sometimes where you're like, well, I could use this versatile to attack, but in 2v2, you gotta think twice about that because you might just get rushed.
Yeah, and like another thing that's interesting is like cards like skirmish and leap away, which traditionally are used on defenses. They're big versatile fours. You can use a skirmish on offense to push someone away from your ally who's really struggling to keep that hand size up. So you take these cards that are used one way and you kind of turn them on their head, right?
Mm.
And you have a partner to work with, so being able to block with them, being able to walk behind them and like lead people into traps, right, where you have like some post combat movement or pushing them into your allies so then they can get double tax. There's a lot of interesting interactions that you don't really get to see in the 1v1 format, obviously just due to the nature of having more heroes on the board, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I feel like the game gets its own meta, it gets its own like rhythm to it. And like certain characters, the way they operate, they were very much designed for 1v1. But some characters, they rise to the occasion. So I think that's what makes it exciting too, is it puts different characters that you might not have always wanted them. You might wanted more for them, and this is their second chance, their breath of life that they get to breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. And the common one that people say is like the Buffy characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're quite good in 2v2, and a lot of people who've never played the format don't see it until they start playing these fighters, and you realize Faith having 8 cards makes a pretty big difference because Angel goes down, Faith is still fighting, and she's pretty dangerous.
Right, right.
So like it allows him to play a bit more recklessly, lets him change up kind of how he plays. I mean, Spike is that's a whole different thing. We'll probably get to that at some point, but he's
Oh yeah.
deadly in 2v2. But it's also neat because other fighters they'll kind of change kind of their role. So like Sherlock can't play exhaustion in this, but he still has some printed fives and he has the ability to rip cards out of the opponent's hands, see what they have, and he kind of falls into this more support role, right? You can block with Watson, you can actually block with Sherlock a little bit, not too much, but he kind of goes from being this like boogeyman into being this like almost supportive character. He kind of feels a lot more like Sherlock actually in this regard. Yeah, his heroes feel very different.
I love that this game has so many ways to keep the game interesting and to change it up in so many different ways. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And I don't think they even intended that. But it's just these things that the community can find, and because it's like a fighting game, we have all these different options. I was wondering if you can go deeper into card draw, and how much different that is for 1v1 to 2v2, because you were talking about exhaustion isn't really as much of a thing to think about, which I hate playing to exhaustion.
It's a neat puzzle. It's a neat puzzle, that's for
Right.
sure.
But like, dude, Robin Hood. Robin Hood
Yes.
can use his schemes and it doesn't feel bad. How cool is that?
He's the
Tell me
people's
about it.
champion. Everyone loves Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, so draw is like one of the main, I guess, differences between the two. And like I was saying before, something like a draw 3 is traditionally, kind of poo-pooed, but like in 2v2, draw 3 is functionally giving you like 3 actions when you think about it. Right? You don't have to maneuver 3 times, which that allows you to keep tempo up. It allows you to play more aggressively. And more importantly, it allows you to recover after getting nailed by 2 people. Maybe they have discard effects, maybe they've used insights or ambushes, clutching claws. It really, kind of changes how you perceive a hero, right? Because someone they can turn on a dime. Someone who has a slow draw, again, like Sherlock, or someone like Electra, who doesn't really have a lot of draw, or doesn't have any draw at all, realistically. Normally, they're pretty scary, but here, if you can find a fighter who doesn't have a lot of draw, you can kind of look at them and be like, okay, we can focus them down,
Yeah.
right? There is a window to hit them, and it's less about the head games of, okay, are they throwing a regroup or are they throwing a print 5? And it's more about finding windows and creating those openings where you can get clean hits in and setting up your allies to do the same thing for into the enemy. So I find it's more about windows than it is about the head games. I mean, the head games are still there, but
Yeah, of course.
much um, it's much less a part of it, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
uh, than finding, that opportunity where you can be like, okay, I'm gonna incite their hand, and then you're gonna throw that gaze of stone because I know their turn's not coming up until 2 turns from now, so you can kind of plan a bit.
The way you just talked about card draw was beautiful. Like you love 2v2 so much, and I could see it, man. I could see it in your eyes. You can't hide it. Your eyes literally glow when you talk about 2v2, and that is exactly how I feel, bro.
I
That's why I felt such a connection to you, man.
I wonder if that's just because I'm in a very white room also, and you're just kind of seeing it bounce off the wall. But I mean, I'll take it.
You don't see my eyes glowing? I'm glowing with you,
I'm
brother.
actually I'm actually not trying. I'm trying to look at the camera, which is kind of the most awkward thing to
Yeah.
do.
Oh, I'm not. You don't have to
um,
look at the camera. Just look at me, bro. I'm
just look
looking
at
at
you.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, let's do that.
Wh-
Here, hold on. I'll do one of these when you're talking to the side. It makes it look, more
I was doing that a fat minute
stylish.
ago and I totally regretted it. I was like, wait, I look stupid right now. Because like I can't figure out how to change the. Anyways, I'm not going to get into it. But I looked very dumb. And now I look smart. So,
Yeah, and that's important, right? Looks are
yeah.
half the battle here.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could talk about getting attacked twice as much and what that feels like for a character because I feel like when maybe someone who's never played 2v2 before would pick a character like Sherlock and they would go, "No way, we have Sherlock and, this Sun Wukong," which I feel like both of them aren't like bad in 2v2, but they might not have the same way to go about things as 2v2.
Yeah, absolutely, right? There's twice as many heroes on the board, so obviously the chance of you getting attacked more often, and it's not always going to be the case because of course your opponent has to refuel too, and this goes back to the drawing and action gains and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, you need to have someone who's capable of defending themselves, right? Someone like Dracula, um, not a lot of defenses, really poor draw. Is going to suffer if he gets surrounded. So he's going to have to play a little bit of a different game than, a fighter like Achilles who's angry, who's just drawing cards left, right, and set like every
Mhm.
turn, right?
Yep. I feel like Cobble and Fog in general kind of suffers. Like I feel like if your plan is to fatigue someone or if your whole thing is to just kind of run around and not hopefully not get smacked, then like you really are like sweating. And I'm not saying like Sherlock is bad or anything, but I do feel like, you
You
know,
heard it here first. Sherlock is bad. Take it out of context.
I
Clip
don't think
it.
he's that great in 2v2, but he has his things that he can still do. Um, but I think maybe with the right character, we could talk about this later. I think Jekyll and Hyde could be pretty nasty.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say Jekyll and Hyde's pretty decent because like you can actually retreat behind your ally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normally a two move is pretty crippling, but with the board as busy as it is, a with haste or something, or even a succumb to compulsion can easily set you up into slamming someone as hide. And you have someone to cover you, right? So you drop a bunch of cards from your hand, and someone can help you out, whether it's with a command of storms or a skirmish or just body blocking. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting dynamics. I think
Yeah.
Invisible Man is like almost like this assassin on the board. He's very selfish.
Yep.
He doesn't do much for his teammate, but like when you absolutely need to kill that person at 4 health across the map, Invisible Man can do it, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a cool way to think of him too, because I've struggled to really make him pop up in that way. But since you worded like an assassin's, like that's a really cool way to look at it. That's awesome. I was wondering
Yeah.
if you could tell me some of the characters that have benefited the most from 2v2. And I would love to give my opinion if you don't hit the same ones.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, like I said before, the Buffy characters, they benefit a lot in 2v2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna assume that anyone watching may not be super familiar with the format or whatever. Maybe they want to like get into this, format, maybe use a bit of a jumping point. But characters like Arthur, he benefits a ton in 2v2.
Yep.
He's still carried by Merlin, but there's a lot that Merlin can do. Command the Storms is a really nutty card.
Yeah.
It is a game-changing card when that card goes off. Moving people like 15 spaces across the board functionally like is nutty.
Yeah.
So Arthur benefits a lot. InGen benefits a lot as well. He's not going to be doing a lot of damage, but Muldoon's going to be able to set up those traps, control a ton of the board.
Card draw,
A lot of card draw too from the traps, right?
a
And you
lot
can
of
even
movement.
draw, yeah, 3 move, a lot of range.
Yeah,
So a lot of these fighters that are kind of like, I mean, Muldoon's not bad, I would say, but like Arthur, the Buffy characters, they benefit a lot from this.
I think that Muldoon is like the biggest benefactor of this because I would put him up there for 2v2 because of the card draw, because it's so annoying to get through his engine workers, because of his traps. Movement, like mobility, is pretty important for certain characters as well. And like, there are some characters. See how I'm setting you up? There are some
Mm.
characters where if someone got stopped in their tracks right next to someone else, or perhaps Muldoon used rending shot
Oh no.
to, I don't know, spike,
Yeah.
it could be
So
pretty
Spike,
devastating.
yeah, he's certainly a fighter. I mean, he still has some problems. I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot of cards he can't play in his deck. Seek the Shadows is in the defense, and a few of the Drusilla like I think Drusilla has 7 cards she can play, so she eats a lot of his deck. But he can actually use those shadows, and he is very scary when he's throwing out 5s and 7s and defending with 3s that do like 3 reflect damage back at you
Yeah.
with bloody hell and stuff. And you have the sight, right? And like this card that's normally like impossible to set up or forces, the opponent has to have some kind of player error. It's very easy to set up now, and you always have to be wary of attacking first action,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you might get bounced into him, and setting up pins is nasty too. Getting
Oh,
surrounded by InGen workers while
yeah.
Spike has a shadow next to you or on you, and you have to fight your way out. It's bad feeling. Yeah, that's another cool thing too, right? Since you have a partner, you can just kind of play a character and you get to see more characters in action at once. So if you want to learn, I mean, it's a great way to learn. You get to see 3 other fighters doing their thing all at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
That's a
Even if
great
it's someone you're
point.
not familiar with.
So I was wondering if you could get into teamwork and how that plays into the game. What kind of communication that you suggest for people, that type of thing.
Traditionally, when we play, you show your hands to each other. I mean, that's pretty common knowledge. You're not gonna like lie to your ally. So I mean, there's no point in hiding it.
Right.
But yeah, it's a mix between trying to balance out, you know, 'cause depending on how you're playing, right? If you're playing face to face, the game's gonna be very different because you're gonna have to kind of use signs, almost like you're playing a trick taking game.
Right.
I want to play this card. It's the one that we wanted to do 2 turns ago, and you kind of give a nodding wink, right?
Yep.
But when you're playing online, it's a bit different. I mean, you can send a private message, you can hop into another chat for a second, and it does kind of change the game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie and say it doesn't, but yeah, the communication aspect's like really, really key. I mean, when you're playing a game by yourself, you're thinking of every variable and you're thinking what the opponent could have. But here you have to kind of be on the same page as your ally. There was a time when I was actually playing. It was about a month ago or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on the shield helicarrier, and I decided to activate EMP without telling my partner.
Oh man.
And I was not looking at their hand, and they had some really good things that they had to toss away. I mean, it worked out in the end for us,
Mm.
but one of those things is like, okay, yeah, normally I would have just used it because I had trash to throw away, but I had to actually consider, what my ally is capable of doing. And sometimes you have to kind of bluff a bit. You're sitting on a hand of red cards. Sometimes you just have to walk in and get a couple of attacks, and then hope the other person doesn't fight back.
Yep.
Get you can kind of bluff with a teammate, which is interesting too. You can say like, okay, I'll go in and you do this, right? When really you're trying to do the actual opposite,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your opponent's, your ally's the one who actually has all the defenses, and they try to boost around you to get to them, only to find that it was a trap. right?
Right.
So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the communication, and not just between players, but also between teams. It's pretty cool. So I think the communication aspect is it's interesting. And you start to kind of get a feel for what your ally's going to do. Like I know when I play with some people, I know that once they're below 4 cards, they're always going to double maneuver, like
Mm.
clockwork. They're always going to double maneuver, and I don't even have to ask them. So it's
Mm.
kind of neat that like you kind of get into this flow, like you were saying, with you kind of know what your ally's going to do, and it's just a cool feeling.
Yeah. And like I think something that's really important too is be hyper aware of how your partner's character plays, right? Because there are some characters that like a T-Rex. T-Rex is great in 2v2, I think. But I think if she's left all alone on the opposite side of the map with two different characters and you're just trying to do your own thing on the opposite side of the map, it's just not going to
Yeah,
work as well, right? Or if your character kind of likes to hang back a little bit, maybe pick a character that can support that.
compliment them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you really want to be aware. I think I'm like doubling what you're saying. Is like you really just want to know what every character kind of does.
yeah. You want to be able to
Doubling.
shore up weaknesses too, right? You want to shore up weaknesses or double up on their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So like something like Raptors and Cloak and Dagger, they're glad like you decide, okay, you know what, we're gonna go whole ham here, like
Mm-hmm.
pure offense. That's it. But you know you kind of have to be on the same page before you do that, because you don't want someone to go, oh, I'm gonna go Cloak and Dagger, and then the other person's gonna go, I'm going Invisible Man,
Right.
and they don't quite work too well together, right? They don't really have the same flow. So I think that's important too when you're doing the picks. But I think what
Yeah.
you're saying is also like the positioning aspect is really different,
Yep.
right? You kind of have to be near the action. And sometimes you can lure people into things, but you have to kind of be a bit careful with it too, because you don't want to be left behind or thrown around the map with different movement effects. I remember we played that game in the bronze with T-Rex, and I think you all clumped up for a giant thrash, and I think I did like 8 or 9 damage or something like that.
Bro, you have to bring that up.
I do
I'm
have
I'm
to bring it up.
embarrassed by that shit, bro.
And then you guys split up, right? Which was the biggest mistake, because you know T-Rex doesn't have a lot of defenses. Had you guys fought back, you probably would have done it, but
You were
you
probably
were
thinking these guys are chumps. They don't know what they're doing. Hey, I've practiced since then, Buster.
all right. But yeah, it's important to know, like, because if your ally double maneuvers away and you know you're caught without like a 3 boost or something to escape, now
Uh-huh.
you've just been left in the lurch by your partner.
Yep.
So you do have to communicate that kind of stuff before you act, because there's always going to be an enemy turn before your turn comes.
Yeah.
So
And knowing how your partner plays is huge. Like, I like to pick the characters that smashy smash, but that doesn't always work. Sometimes if someone picks someone who's needs help in another way, I gotta be able to adapt. Um, as much as I like to smashy smash, if I can pick a character like Luke Cage, oh my god, I love Luke Cage in doubles. Um,
yeah, you
T
don't have to worry
Rex,
about blocks.
yeah, exactly. Oh, how good is that? Oh,
Super good.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I would say, in my opinion, characters that benefit the best. I think I think Robin Hood becomes relevant again. I think who's surprisingly just the most annoying, but I would consider like kind of nichely good is
Alice.
Alice is pretty good too because she's smashy smash, but a Ghost Rider, like,
Yeah, yeah.
bro, if your team was like Robin Hood, Elektra, Ghost Rider is a nightmare. He's just
Yeah.
getting rid of all of your whole game plan. In a lot of ways.
Yeah, Ghost Rider's neat because he like if he there's a lot of bodies, so it's really easy for him to get a couple points of damage out with those Hellfire boosts.
Yep.
And like it's really easy for him to swerve in, pull, and then immediately retreat, and
Yep.
then force them to engage your partner where you have like a double attack setup or something like that, or a bigger turn. So
Yeah, and he's
and you
got
have and
fives.
Hell Rides with Me is awesome too, right? You can pull people around the map. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. And so he has his moments for sure. And like I love how some characters just have their moments. Oh, here's something we didn't talk about. Genie. Tell me a
Oh
little bit
yeah,
something about
cosmic
Genie.
power, right? Yeah, so don't have to do much about say much about Genie, but three wishes says each opponent discards two cards, and I have seen games where it's just like three wishes, discard two, three wishes, discard two, activate EMP or activate the payphone, get another three wishes back, and then that's it. It's game over.
Yeah.
Genie is a ticking clock that you absolutely have to kill first because wishes is so good.
I mean, effectively you can get rid of how many cards? Like 2, 4, 6,
12
12.
with
Oh my
12 without Marvel items, yeah.
that's
And that doesn't
dumb.
count Sultans. So, and then makes Sultans out of you and puts it to 14. That's
Yeah.
an insane amount of discard, yeah.
So, like I said, Genie wasn't bad, but man, does Genie like go up a few tiers just because of something like that? And there's just characters that they get their little shine in 2v2. No, I won't mention unreleased characters. So I'm gonna talk about something
No.
else.
We're
Ah!
not doing that.
I'm not. I'm not. Let's
But
see.
we can well, I guess we can say though the Tales to Maze characters very fun in 2v2.
Oh,
I've had a
yeah,
chance to
and
play with
we've
them a bit.
seen their cards. So,
We have, yeah.
yeah. So,
So,
you would think because they're based off of, teamwork that they would work really well in a team. So, I think
yeah.
they work really well in a team as well.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for anybody
Right.
who's trying to avoid the cards and stuff. But yeah, they're if you like 2v2, you absolutely want to get that set because it's they have some cool stuff. They have some really
Right.
cool stuff they can do. Yeah.
So, I mean, that for me, that makes me more excited for future Unmatched Adventures sets because it's only, I think, going to get crazier with the synergy with certain characters. And, they might be the nuts characters for 2v2, I
Yeah.
think, eventually.
I can't say too much. I don't know what's been
Ah!
revealed, so I don't want to say anything. But
Okay.
I don't want to say it. You probably
Ah!
know, but we're not gonna say anything.
Oh, yeah. I won't. No, I promise I'm not going to spoil anything. But just the fact that certain
Uh,
characters can do nutso butso things with synergy, just and I think like sometimes restoration games did not consider their wording for 2v2, but sometimes I think they did. Um just like Genie itself, like, really? That's insane. But
yeah, that's that's one thing I'm keeping an eye on for future things. But that's certainly an effect.
yeah.
Certainly an effect.
So how do you feel about the difficulty of getting 4 players together? Um I know that seems to be something I see
It
you
sucks.
mention. Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah, dude. I feel very
Yeah.
fortunate because I live with 3 guys that play Unmatched, but I can only imagine if you normally only play online and you might not have a core set of friends that like would be willing to do that every week.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Unmatched Online's pretty helpful for that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about Unmatched Digital. I don't know if it has 2v2. I think it probably does.
Mm.
Um, with the matchmaking and stuff. But yeah, it's tough, especially because the games do take longer.
Mhm.
I know for me it's hard to play it in person because I mean we don't really get to meet up too often to play games. Maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, if at most. And we have a lot of games. You know, me and my friends we play a lot of games, and we don't just play Unmatched, obviously. So when we got 4 people, maybe want to pull out Tigris and Euphrates, or like I'm just looking at my shelf here. Maybe
Flex.
some kind, maybe War Whispers, or who knows, right?
Right.
Maybe we just want to play some cooperative things or play some Komet. So even when we do have 4 people, it's not always going to be that. So I'm really thankful for the online community because that's where I get most of my 2v2 gameplay in.
Mhm.
Um, I did run I did run a few 2v2s with some friends, and they had a really good time with them. But we just haven't had the time really to do it, especially with the last couple of years. Things have been a little crazy. So
Mhm. And I think that 2v2 has been considered sometimes like a meme just to put it the most chill. Like it's like, oh, it's a silly thing to do. But what I think with your tournament and hopefully with this video, people can really start considering it to be a really valid way to play and enjoy the game.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think anybody's really saying like, "Oh, don't play 2v2. It's not
Right.
fun." That's no one's doing that. I mean, I'd like to believe people aren't that gatekeepy.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's definitely a format that has a lot more nuance than a lot of people kind of think at first glance. So, I mean, the same way you read like a post on Reddit where it's like, Unmatched doesn't have a lot of strategy, it's just wailing on each other. And then there's always someone popping up saying, well, watch some of the competitive games and see how much strategy there actually is, especially as the game starts ticking down to that exhaustion state.
Mhm.
Right? You could say the same thing here, right? People say, you're just wailing on each other in 2v2, but hopefully, people try it out more and they'll see that yeah, there's actually quite a lot of nuance um to each fight, especially when there's so many more variables to take into account. There's more combinations of heroes that can be on the map at once.
Right.
It's impossible to play every 2v2 matchup. Like there's just so many of them that it's just I don't think there's enough time to do it.
And
So
it's
it
growing.
feels like yeah, and it feels like the Wild West, honestly. Like every time I play a game, I feel like I'm pretty confident and I know what's going on, and then someone does some interaction that I didn't consider, and it's like, wow, that just blew my mind.
Yeah. And I feel like it is so undiscovered and like and when I say it could be treated a bit more seriously. I'd like to see some tier list being made. With this tournament, we'll get the data for the tier list. We'll start seeing some movement and some more thought on this because, when there's only 8 people playing 2v2, the needle can only move so far and the meta can only go so far. Like I don't
Yeah, it
think
becomes
I'm the
kind
guy
of
to crack the
insulated.
code. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You end up kind of falling into similar patterns where one person really likes playing Bruce and Jekyll and Hyde and a lot of the solo fighters. One person hates ranged fighters, so you don't really get that full don't really get all the interactions, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully by bringing this out to more people and by running this like little 2v2 tournament, hopefully we'll see some, exciting developments. Maybe people might be really into it. Maybe people might hate it, but at the very least, we'll try it out, and I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I'm just thinking like obviously it wouldn't be the same level, but even just like streaming with commentary, I think it'd be interesting to see how maybe some champs who've played a lot of 1v1 how they would handle, the commentary in that situation. I think it'd be kind of neat to see them looking at a situation differently as well, and I think that'd be kind of cool to see. So if anyone is listening who streams, yes, and has maybe won a championship or something, yeah, maybe get a hold of me because I'd like to do some streams of these 2v2 matches. I think to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just at least show what the format's about.
And I think that if they did do commentary or they did happen to catch a game, which I believe they will. I mean, I'm sure it'd be interesting for them. Um they'll see like, oh, there's something to this. That's my hope. And it feels more social too.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more social. I mean, there's obviously going to be more people involved. I mean,
Mhm.
it does come with its downsides a little bit. Like, if you play a solo fighter and you get knocked out really early, you're just kind of sitting there. But I
Mm.
mean, you can at least, counsel your teammate and try to think of a way out of the situation, which is kind of a fun puzzle. Even
Yeah.
if you kind of think the game's already over, I mean, it's still worth a try. And I mean, there's always, you can always just concede if both of you agree to it. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's always that always happens. I mean, there's no different than being Dracula and having no defenses into Genie and then just dying turn one, right? That happens. So
Yeah, I mean, it happens in 1v1 and 2v2. I think
exactly. So
2v2 just happens to be a bit longer. So you really have to do the math in your head like, is this possible? Do I want to play for like 20 more minutes?
yeah,
You know?
yeah, the length being about 40 minutes a game it does also add to that problem that we talked about earlier about getting the actual games in.
Mhm.
So for this tournament, we are only doing best of one.
Mm.
which I know some people won't like, but I mean, after you play your best of one game, if you guys still want to play, please go ahead and play. I mean, this is what this is about. So,
Yeah, and I think this is very good for a learning process. Like not just for the community about how to play 2v2, but how to run a 2v2 tournament. You know, like it might not all be figured out right now for the first
oh
time. You
no,
know what I mean? So I'm open to whatever, you know, and I'm just excited to see what works and see what doesn't. And then my main thing I'm worried about right now or excited about is just showing people how fun it is. That's all. And maybe
yeah,
the people that are in the tournament, they'll practice. You know, I'm gonna look who's on the roster and be like, yo, you guys want to do like a little practice like 2v2 just to see how it feels? I'm sure there are some people that won't play until the day of, but you know,
yeah, we've
me,
got some cool names on here. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
and
What?
there's people here that I haven't seen in the 1v1 format too. So that's cool too, right?
Yeah, you might get your own sub community. Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I think 2v2's for everybody, and I don't think just because it's a tournament, I don't think that should put you off of trying to play it because
No.
you'll have a good time with your partner no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that if you're not sure about the tournament scene in general, this tournament is a good way to get into it. You
Yeah, at
know,
least to
it's
watch,
pretty
right?
low. Yeah, it's pretty low commitment, honestly, the way we've set it up. And I'm I'm hoping it's fun.
It
We'll
will
see
be.
how it goes.
No, it's
We'll
going to
see how
be
it goes.
awesome. I'm so excited. Dude, you have no idea how grateful I am. Because, like, in a lot of my videos or just when I'm talking to people, he's like, bro, you got to try 2v2. That is my favorite way to play. And it's just cool that I feel like we're two peas in a pod when it comes to that specifically.
2v2 peas in a pod, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the tournament. All
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
So when did you really start thinking about starting the tournament?
So I was actually thinking about it kind of just before Winter Champions, but I knew what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure it was after Winter Champions because I've done stuff for different communities before and burnout's like a real issue
Mhm.
and I didn't want to overload people with here's like six different tournaments at once plus there was the ladder going on and this and this and this. And obviously people can say no to doing something, but I'd rather pop it out there when there was a bit of a kind of a blank space. But after Winter Champions was done, I think Team League was already kind of starting in development in the background. So I had to kind of move. So thankfully, Team League it seems pretty low commitments. I think it's like one game a week, so it's nothing as major as Winter Champions or Summer of Legends.
Yeah.
But we're situated right now between Winter Champions, Summer of Legends, and Team League. So I had to come up with a format that was quick enough to run within 5-6 weeks because I wanted to make sure that people weren't burnt out before Summer of Legends started. And I basically just kind of took the idea from Winter Champions with the group stages because I thought that was really helpful. It
Mhm.
looked like people were able to schedule games a lot easier than being told like, okay, play this person this week. So I took that idea plus the the idea that 2v2s are hard to organize. Did that and then created like kind of groups, and then afterwards, whoever wins in the groups will go on to a semifinals, final kind of just bracket set of matches, and
Mhm.
that was it. Something small. This was mainly supposed to be like a test run,
Mhm.
and hopefully it goes well. This is my first time running a tournament for this. I mean, I've run fighting game tournaments before and stuff like that. But for Unmatched Online, haven't done it. So
I
we'll
think
see
it's
what
going to go
happens.
great.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it'll go a lot better once we kind of get going. I mean, there's going to be some things we got to iron out.
Mhm.
Rules questions people probably have clarifications. Um, I'm sure there's going to be some stuff about recording stats and matches and this and that, but nothing major. I think this community is pretty resilient when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, the game itself is pretty straightforward, so hopefully that kind of helps here.
Right. So would you like to talk about the rules and how it's set up just like real fast?
Yeah, so like I said, there's a group stage at the beginning where you have to play against each team each team other than yourself, obviously, once. And that could be anywhere from 4 to 6 teams, depending on how many entrants we get. So you may have to play 3 games, you may have to play 4 games, maybe up to 5. I doubt we'll hit 5, but
Mm.
it'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, the person or the team with the highest score advances, and that's kind of the main setup. But the team league, or the team league, sorry, I'm getting mixed up here. The 2v2 tournament itself follows most of the same unmatched rules. Basically, the drafting is done with the Arsenal style. So if you don't know how that works, each team will pick 4 heroes. You'll reveal them simultaneously. Any duplicates are banned out. So if you pick Genie and I pick Genie, neither team can use Genie. You continue until both teams have 4 fighters, unique fighters between the two of them. And then what you would do is you would assign from that pool a fighter to me, and we'll say a fighter to you. And then your opponents would do the same. And you'd assign them secretly. So this kind of gives you an idea of what your opponent has, and you know that they have, okay, they have these 4 people, we have these 4 people. How do we kind of piece a team together here that can counteract their possible advantages and disadvantages? So it's kind of like a neat little discussion point there. Afterwards, you'd reveal them, and you'd roll for who gets map pick. So you'd roll. Someone would get the map pick. The other team does get to ban a map, mainly because some of the Marvel items do change the way how the game is played a lot. And afterwards, the team who'd banned the map does get to choose the position. So they get to choose if they're 1 and 3 or 2 and 4. So you can. It was the only way to do it really best of 1. So
Right.
kind of did the best we could there, yeah. And then you'd set up. You'd have a mulligan, and yeah, you'd go. I think the only difference is there's a custom rule in this tournament where on the first turn, the first player cannot attack the 4th player.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So, can you use schemes that affect player 4?
Yes, you just can't attack them.
Okay.
So you want to use momentary glance or an insight, you can. So that does kind of give those schemy fighters something, because I mean, they kind of feel worse in these formats. But yeah, you can't attack them. So you're not boosting in, attacking with a giant action chain, and then your partner goes in, hits them when they're flat-footed twice, and they die. So
Right.
because player 4 is the only person who can be attacked twice before their turn even comes, and you don't want them sitting there double maneuvering for the whole game because they have a hand size of 0, basically. So
I didn't want to say like a whole tier list or anything like that because I don't want to influence people too much, but giving an idea of people what to expect. And I think you did an excellent job of that. And I'm very excited to play in your tournament.
yeah, I would say, like, you know what? Don't worry about the tier list. It's like I said, it's the Wild West. Pick someone you think is going to be fun first and foremost. Maybe ban a hero you don't want to see, like, Spike, InGen, Genie, or whatever. I don't care. But honestly, experiment. Like the other day, or well, not the other day, it was a while back. I've been experimenting with Electra in 2v2,
Yeah.
and she's pretty cool, honestly. So pick something you think's cool, something that works, and I mean, I'm sure you and your partner will make it work, and if not, you'll have a good story to tell at least. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
those stories of like, bro, they just don't work in 2v2. What the, like, I'm so mad because they're so good in 1v1. Why is this happening? Or sometimes I think a character is bad and I'm dead wrong. Like they're sweet. Like Electra. I was pretty convinced that she was just okay. But you're saying otherwise, so I got to give
I
her a
think
try.
I think she's pretty interesting. Having 4 sidekicks
Mm-hmm.
already gives her a pretty big edge.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, four sidekicks. She has like 12, but like
Right.
she actually has to attack and fight in order to maximize that life, right? And I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So it changes how she plays completely. It forces her to kind of play as intended, which I think is fun. Same with someone like Daredevil, actually.
Yeah.
Daredevil's another great example because he has to kind of play medium medium hand size. So on the off chance he has to dip low to block high. So
Yeah.
it's just cool.
Poor
And I think it's
Daredevil.
fun to experiment. Yeah, poor Daredevil. Yeah, okay. But yeah, I think it's fun to experiment. And I think if you're unsure about whether you want to do this, do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Find a partner, chat them up, sign up, and just go for it. Because I mean, what's the worst case scenario? You play 1 or 2 games, maybe you finish your third one, and then be like, okay, you know what, I'm done. Or maybe you might have a good time with it. It's only 3 games,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
So
that's low commitment. Come on. That's
it's
probably
pretty low.
for all these other tournaments, where I'm in it for like, half a year or whatever, like that's pretty good.
A whole season, yeah.
Yeah. So I think like the way you're doing it where low commitment, not too many rounds, not making it too intimidating for people to join. I think you're nailing it, man. I'm so excited. So thanks for
Yeah.
coming on, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how people play it out. I don't think I'll be playing, but I will definitely be watching, and I will be following any VODs that definitely come out of this. But we're still looking for more teams as of this filming. So
Mm-hmm.
please, we can accommodate people. So I'd like to see more people show up. And if you can get a spot, awesome. If you can't, I'm really sorry. But yeah, hopefully we'll see some cool stuff, and we'll see kind of the spark of new players enjoying this new format. So, especially now that Tilsa May stuff was announced on Kickstarter, we got a whole fresh batch of people. So,
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah, so
yeah.
it'll be cool.
And those characters, I mean, could be pretty good. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know. May have to wait for the next tournament though, because only up to King country is legal.
Right. But Black Panther, I mean,
Yes,
he's kind
Black.
of,
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
yeah.
Black Panther's pretty cool. He can do a lot of interesting stuff if you think about it. I'm not going to give too much away, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, bud. I won't keep you. Thank you for coming on, and thanks so much for talking to me, and thanks so much for promoting my favorite way to play.
Yeah, it was a fun time, honestly. I mean, I don't know if I said anything that will catch anyone off guard or is new to them, but if it was new to you, cool. Hopefully you learned something. If you just wanted to hear us talk, I mean, also cool. Thanks for being here. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a good time. I
Thank
know we've
you.
been trying to set this up for a while, so
Thank you.
yeah,
Bye.
yeah.
Boom. And then that's the end of the video. We're done.
That's the end of the video. We're gonna have a star wipe.